Hey guys, welcome back. So recently I made this plugin that allows you to place buildings. It's simply a builder function that allows you to make in-game builder system to allow your users to customize the scenes and place or remove, tweak with the environment they are playing on. So I made this plugin that allows you to basically add anything to your scene, from static meshes to blueprints to any kind of functionality. It's fully customizable. It contains so many callback functions that you can use it to tweak your buildings or anything else. It has so many features, like you have the detection for hovering and unhovering, or maybe clicking to select this, and after selecting this you can hit on a blank space. Another callback runs here that says this building is unselected. So you have so many callbacks to use, and also so many functions to deal with this. Let's say you want to move this, you can simply move this. It's way easier that you can think about, because everything is built in and you can use it. Almost you can delete these functions, these buildings. And it has detection for already used places. So here this place is used, so you have callback functions that tells you this you cannot place your building here because it's already used. And if you click on this anyway, it will returns to its original position. And you can also move it and just cancel it right away. You have so many options to do with this, and you have so many callback functions that you can use it in these buildings to customize your own scene, your own game, and that give you unique experience to the players. So this plugin is a placement system. It's free. It's been 3 or 4 days I'm working on. It's completely free. It's not yet perfect, but as far as I tested this, it's good and everything works smoothly for me. I hope you experience the same. If you saw anything unusual, you can just report it to me and I try my best to fix it. So now let's get into this and let's see how we can use this plugin to make some kind of builder like this. Well, the first step is to get the plugin, of course. Here is the plugin. Link will be in description. Placement system. You can hit code and download zip, or you can just clone the project. After you did that, you just simply get into the plugins folder inside your project. If you don't have the folder, just make it and place the folder here. I mean the folder that you have the .u plugin directly inside. Place it here and then run the game. It may ask you to rebuild, just rebuild and just open it. So you get something. Just make sure you have it and it's checked. By default, it should be checked. If it's not, just check it here. So we are good to go. And the scene I just made is simply a Unreal Engine script for I think first person or third person. They both have this grid material, which is nothing fancy. All I did just made this size to be 100 by 100, so you don't really need this, but just for visualization purposes I added this. It's 100 by 100. And here is my player. The player has nothing too much. It just simply in the starting of the game, it just shows the mouse to make sure when you play you have the mouse, and it's also have some functionalities to rotate the camera and move around. So let's say you want to make a very simple application, which is basically you click here and you spawn a building. This is the simplest thing you can do, right? So let's make this. So the first one is to get into somewhere. I have a folder called buildings, and I make a building because I want to spawn a building, so I need to have a building. So I make a blueprint class, get into all classes, and a placement actor is a custom actor from the plugin, specifically made for things that you want to build in runtime. Let's say called building _1. Open the building and you will see 3 components here. The root one you don't have to care about. And the second one is this collision, which is very handy, and you have to adjust it properly because this collision will be used to determine the hovering and selection and other things. So this have to be set properly. The third one is the mesh, the actual mesh of the building. And the fourth one you already saw is this green triangle. I will explain this later, but now let's just make something that can be spawned into the world. So don't care about the collision or this green one. Let's just get into the mesh and let's find a mesh for it. So here is my mesh. Just I think it's too big, so I just scale it down to 0.5, and I just make sure it's in the center of the green rectangle. Don't ask me why, I will explain it later. Okay, done. Now we have the building, and we can place this building into anywhere in our scene. Just delete this and make sure you get into your player, and this is my player, I just explained it before, and we need a component called placement manager. Good. So here in my placement manager, as you know, I want to click and spawn a building. So basically I'm dragging my placement component, and this is an event for left mouse button. I want to place a building. So here's a function called placement start. This function allows you to place a building or start the process of building or adding a building. And let's make a struct. This requires some data. You don't have to know about all of these. The first one is the most important one, is the class to spawn. We just made that one. It's called building 1. So let's select this, and we have it building 1. And now let's see what's happening. So now if I right mouse, I spawned this, but now if I move my mouse, it will come with my mouse. And well, the problem is it's because we never told the system to stop the process. And we have to do that by simply getting into the player. In the same place component manager, I want to stop the process or accept the process in its location when I click on the right mouse button. So here is something called placement accept, which means you accept the placement in its position. Let's see. So accept. One more time. Accept. One more time. Accept. One more time. Accept. And I can go as many as I want. And note that I cannot ever place them on top of each other. When I click this, it just not works. It will be cancelled out. So it's good. It's a very good thing. So the first thing to see is the collision. Let me just adjust the collision, because the collision is very handy. It allows us to detect hovers and selection on our building. So it's good. And now we are detecting hovers. Let's see. There's a function called onHover, and let's see if we are detecting this. And I'm going to just print a string, call this hover, and now let's place a building, and let's see if we can get this hover. Yes, as you can see, anytime we hover this, we get this. So it's cool. We have the hover, and here is some built-in feature for hovering. Come into the select the class defaults, and here you have placement system, hover animation, and check it. But make sure you adjust this with the size. Now it's 0.5, so I'm going to adjust the scale with that. So the normal will be 0.5 and the scaling will be 0.6 for me. And here we go. We can now place, accept, and we can hover, right? And now they're all intractable to my mouse position. Cool. Now let's say we have one bigger buildings. Let me just grab another building, a bigger one. Let's say I want this one. Yes, it's very cool. The problem with this, it's quite big in a way that this box doesn't fit it, because this green one determines how space this will take, but it's quite small. We have to adjust this. Here's something, another section called size and grid. This tells you how many cells this building will need. I see this will take 3, maybe 4 of them. Make a 4x4, and I'm gonna make sure that my building is in the center. This is very good. And now I will make sure that this box will fill my new building. Make sure don't use too big ones. Good. And now let's test this. And boom, we can have these big buildings. And just see how this snaps to the grid. And boom. And now we have these two buildings and we can hover them. It's quite simple, right? You don't have to do much of blueprinting or anything. The problem with this is we have some limitation that we can only build one building at a time. So it's good to use UI in this case. So this is why I made this simple UI, which is simply an image on top, a name, and that's it. And it's all wrapped by a button. So I want to, when clicked on this button, spawn a particular building. So this is why I will call onPress here. So when this building this will be this will be fired. So I made a struct. It's very simple. It takes a name. This struct will be for these buttons, right? So I made a struct for this button to hold the image and the name, right? And also the blueprint class. We want this button to spawn to start this process. We did it here. To do the same process we did it here, we want to start the placement, right? So we need an actor to spawn. So this is why it's a name, it's a class, and it's an image. The name will go here, the image will go here, and the class will be going here. So let's use this. So first I'm going to get into this is the UI button I just made. I'm going to add a new variable. This variable will be called data. The type will be this type we just made, this struct. So it will be building data structure. It's good, right? And all we have to do to make it public. Now, let's say we have another UI screen and I want to place all my buttons here, right? So let me create a button. So we have a placement button UI component. Boom, we have it here, right? And we can have multiple of this. I just like to have some spacing here. 0 to 10. 10, 0. Now we can have as many buttons as we want in this bottom section, and not just because we set this to public. We compile it, and there we go. We have the name, we have the class, and we can specify the image. And we can come back here and say image to be bound to the data image, and this to bound to data name. And now we can specify building classes here, right? So it's very good. Let's say this one, which is this building, I want this to be added to the first building. I want this UI to spawn this building, right? So I'm going to here select this building 1 and the image. So here I added the image, and now all we have to do, we want to, when this button click it, to this function to be called, right? So all we have to do is select the button here, and we want this to be called. But the problem is the target is placement manager, so we have to get the placement manager. The first thing is to cast to player BP, right? And the one we want to cast, the pound, and we would like to get placement manager, and here we can connect the placement manager. Good, and now we have the data, we can get the data, we can break it, and boom, we have the class that goes to the class. And now we want to just add this UI, this placement UI BP. I want to add it to the screen, so I just call create widget and add to viewport, and boom, we have that button. And now I can select this and the process will start. But make sure you just remove that things you did here. But you may notice this when you click, and it will glitch here, and it will start when you release it. And the reason is you can simply set the UI mode after that to gameplay only or gameplay and UI, and the controller will be get player controller. And now when you drag this, you will start to see this, and now it cannot be cancelled. So I would like to cancel or accept the placement with my right mouse button. So let's say placement accept to my, let's say this left mouse button for now. And now we can, boom, can set this to the release one, would be more perfect, huh? So we can drag and release, drag, release, drag and release. It's perfect, right? Let's add one more building to this. So I already created some other buildings here with different classes. This, let's say, use this one. This one is another simple one. This one has this like fan or something that is rotating. I just added this to the tick to rotate this. It's called BBP3. So let's use this one, UI component. The second one, I'm going to select the BBP3. And the name, if you want to, let's say fan, I know. This one, let's say A. So now we can add fan, boom. We can have different buildings. Now we can drag and place them, right? It's very good. But let's assume you want to do more functionalities to this. Well, actually, the building class is so optimized and so like it has so many callbacks that you can use for almost any case you may think about. Now, first, let me tell you what these callbacks are, and then we will use them in real time. So the first one is hover. Whenever your building, this building, is hovered, this function will be called. And when the hover ended, this function, the on unhover, will be called. OnSelected and on unselected will also be called when this building selected and unselected. Now, what I mean with this, so there is a function inside the placement manager called select under mouse, under the cursor, sorry, select under the cursor. Now, well, this allows us, let's say when we press left mouse button, we call this, I would just like to connect this. This will select any building that is under the cursor. So let's see. So this is the on select. I'm going to just print something. Let's say print select, and when I drag this here and click on this, select will be called. So when we call this select under cursor, any building that is under this this system will call this on select. And when we unselect, when we click on an empty space or we select anything else or we do something else, the on unselect will be called. So let's use this on select function for a useful purpose. We have two functions that one of them is responsible for starting the replacement of this building and one of them to remove this building. So if you call any one of these, the function, this one will start the replacement. Let's say you want to move the building, you can call this one, and to delete this you can call this one. Now let me call one of these when we select. Let's say we want to replace. So when I drag one of these here and then I select, I can replace this, but I cannot cancel this, so I have to get into my player. In the placement manager, we have to tell them to cancel it because it won't do it by itself. So on the release, I would like to accept the replacement. Basically, I dragged my mouse to here, to this building here, and I started replacing it to here. I like to keep this building here. This is what we call accepting the replacement. So here I would like to, when I release the left mouse button, accept any replacement. Done, right? But now you may think that's wrong because we are accepting placement and replacement at the same time. But no worries, because these two functions will never be, the placement and replacement process will never be working at the same time. So either this will be called or this. So no worries, they are called at the same time. And now if I drag this here, I'm replacing it, I'm releasing it here, and it's now here, and I can start replacing it. So let's see how this replacement works. When we click on the left mouse button, the select under cursor will call. Let's say this building is under this, so it will call this on select event, and this event registers the building, this building, to replacement, and it will call, it will start the replacement process. It will start to replace, and then the building follows the mouse, and you are happy for the building to be placed here. Let's say you replace it from here to here, and you accept this. You simply call the replacement accept. So your building is replaced and you accepted the replacement. And let's say you want to cancel it. You can do the same as you do for placement. You can call for replacement. Let's say I want to cancel it on clicking right mouse button. So I will drag it here, I can cancel it. I place it here and I can click it, I start replacement, I can cancel replacement by calling this, by hitting right mouse button, and of course I can accept it by releasing left mouse button. So this is how we can call select under the cursor and use the on select function for individual buildings. And let's say we want to click on this, select this and destroy it. So we want to remove this building when we click on it. And it's also possible. Click on it and boom, it's done. But I don't want to do any of them either for now, because I'm explaining these things. And now you understand how hover and how selection works. And basically this one will be called anytime this building and selected. Here is one of them, call it on placement process validation. Now for this one I implemented this already. When I drag this building into another building, it will turn into red. How the building really knows it's not a good position? Because it uses this function. This function is only used for validation. It's called on tick and has a boolean called can't place in current location. So basically you have the building here and you have this building. It's in placement process, right? So this function will be called. This function will be called on placement or on replacement process. So when you drag this, So when you drag this, now this on placement process validation will be called, and you have a boolean to determine if it is in a good position or not. If it's not, you can just change the material. You can play another sound. I don't know. This is fully customizable, and you can do this anytime you want. And this is basically tells you if this call it on placement or on replacement. In other words, if it's the first time on the scene or it's actually moving this building. You can use this building to check that. I'm not quite sure if you use this, but anyway, I just added it. And you have two other functions, on replacement started and on replacing. So basically, when you start replacing a building, okay, let me add that event back for register replacement, which is simply registers this building for repositioning or replacing. Now I am on selecting this. I will call this. You can basically call this on a UI function or anything, but just for explanation, I'm doing this here. So now I drag this, I select this. This process call this replacement, right? When this process call it, a callback will be called, and when it's ended, another callback will be called. And these are those two callbacks, replacement start and on replacement, on replace it. So this is how you can use these two events. I'm going to show you another use case of, so this building is, when it's selected, it shows this UI. So it's just like using this, and now I use it on selected to register this building, but this one is actually showing you a UI. And when I click on this blank space, on and select will be called on this building, and it will hide the buttons. So hide and show the buttons based on the selection, based on these two events, based on these two callbacks. So we can have a UI, a simple UI like this, and we can start moving it, which is simply registering for replacement, or we can delete this, which is simply calling the remove building. So you have these callbacks and you have an empty blueprint. You can have tons of logics for your own buildings, but these are the buildings features. You don't have to make these because it's already made for you, and you can use them, and you can have anything you want to make. And one thing I'm sure you wondered before, when you drag these into anywhere, you have these little black cells beneath the buildings. It's actually from the grid, and you can customize it. How we can do that? Get into your player and select placement manager component and find the grid placement, and of course you have something called custom grid class. You don't have it here, so let's make a grid class. It will be called grid manager. In this time I'll call just GB for now, and I'm going to drag this GB into here, and now we are using this GB. If you play it, you will see nothing changes, but we can customize this. And the first one, select your blueprint, and you have this here. First one, you can just change the grid size here. Of course, you may want your buildings to have, like, let's say you want to snap to 10 units, not 100 units. You can just change this, and you may want to change the material. So I made some materials to use here, this transparent, semi-transparent green to use on the preview. Here it writes grid placement preview material, which is those cells drawing under the buildings when you drag them. And you can customize the color and everything. It's a material, you can just change it. And this value you see here, it's called grid preview padding. If you set this to, it's basically the spacing between cells. If you set this to 0, there will be no gap between drawing cells. It will be look like a plane, those green plane. But I just like to have 10 here. It's cool. And you may want to draw cells by your own. Let's say you want to draw this individual cells by your own, for your own purpose. I don't know, maybe you want to do this. So you can actually. So let me create a begin play. Set timer by function. Let's say by event. And let's create a custom event. And in this custom event, I would like to call a specific function. Call it draw cell. Well, draw cells is drawing cells that you provide to, right? You can just make, let's say this is a cell 5 by 5 for X and 5 for Y. And you can tell them to draw the cell for you. If you have 2 of them, you can just tell them to draw these 2 for you. But when we place a building here, okay, let me just unselect this for now. When you place these buildings here, each building will reserve some cells for itself. This is why we cannot put buildings on top of each other, because these buildings reserve cells. Those cells called reserved cells. You can just put them here for preview. So these all these cells already used by another building, or we have buildings placed on top of them. And we can have a material. I also have this semi-transparent red material. I like to use it. And there is padding. You can just change it to 0. I like to have it at 0. And this is any offset that you may want to draw. I just like to have some of that, like 10. So now after we spawn them, we cannot see this because it's not looping. Set this to loop 0.1 and boom, you see this semi-transparent red plane under the buildings. Those are the reserved cells that already reserved by other buildings, and we cannot place buildings on top of them, right? When we get into those cells, it turns out to be red, so it tells you, hey, you cannot do that. Well, you can have this project, and it will be, the link will be below, and also you have the plugin in GitHub, and it's free. And thank you for watching. But make sure you subscribe and give it a like, and make sure you give the GitHub repository a star. Thank you for watching.